Hello, welcome. I am Michelle Lowe. I'm based in New York, a gallerist. I'm also hosting a weekly virtual interview with artists included in the Golden Door exhibition. Golden Door is currently on view at Silvermine Arts Center in New Canaan, Connecticut, and it's going to be out until January. The exhibition tells the story of becoming American and being American by 11 artists originally came from different parts of the world. So today I am talking with one of the artists in the show, Taro Takizawa. And hi, how are you?
I'm very good. How are you?
Good. I understand you are actually at Silvermine right now doing installation.
This is correct, yes. I got here yesterday, day before yesterday actually, and started installing yesterday. So this is day 2. I'm doing a pretty good progress so far and hoping to finish everything by tonight.
Wow. So what we're seeing behind you, is that one of the pieces, the wall installation?
Yes, so this is one of the 2 installations that I'm doing. The one behind me is a wall vinyl installation, which is gonna take the majority of the time to install in the gallery. And then I have another 4 installation, relatively smaller scale compared to the wall behind me, but that's gonna be also installed today.
Right. So I understand that you grew up in Japan, or you grew up in Hokkaido, northern
Yes,
part
correct. Correct.
The island, northern part of the island. And when you were growing up, you were all very much fond of arts, but you didn't really go into professional study of art or printmaking. From our conversation, I understand. And right now you really specialize in printmaking, and that career truly flourished once you moved to US. Could I say that?
Sure. Well, I don't know if it's truly flourished. I'm still very much, I shouldn't say struggling, but I'm considering myself still an emerging artist. I'm starting my teaching career in higher ed, and also trying to have my studio practice going. And essentially, I have 2 part-time teaching jobs, and my artist or studio practice are 2.5 full-time jobs, kind of. It's pretty interesting.
Right. So you are up in the Rochester area, is that right?
Oh no, Syracuse, New York.
Okay.
Yes, close enough, but different.
Is it because of the climate you choose to be in the northern parts, a little bit close, remind you of where you grew up?
The climate? No. Well, yeah. It's more like the opportunity came to me to go to places like Syracuse. Because I went to Syracuse University for my MFA program. But say if I got accepted to other graduate programs somewhere else in the country, I would totally go. So it wasn't not like a choice that I made just because of the location. Yeah.
Like when you first came to US, you were in Michigan, is that right?
Correct. So I went to Central Michigan University to get my BFA. Then I moved to Chicago because I think Chicago sort of struck me as one of my dream cities to live in. As
why is that?
Because I'm from a relatively small city in Japan, and as a younger, naive student, I was thinking like moving to a big city is kind of like one of those closer dream goals that you like a move, like the next step up for you to do. In Chicago, when I visited in the first few years in Michigan, I think I did a road trip with my friends, and I remember how striking it was as a city. And it is one of the biggest city around Midwestern area. So I was thinking sometime I'll try and move there. So I basically made the move after graduating.
Let me share a screen and just show two of the works that is included in the show. This one, can you see it?
Yes.
So this is not exactly what's gonna be in the show, but a sample of the installation, actual installation. So this is the wall piece, and this one is a floor piece.
Exactly.
Tell us a little bit about these two pieces. You know, now you're specializing in printmaking, and how does that connect to the printmaking process?
So at the beginning of my graduate school, or maybe towards the end of my undergrad, I was always thinking about doing larger work. And if you know printmaking a little bit, it's in a way it's limiting in scale. There are few ways you can do a large print, but mostly I am restricted by the size of the printing press, or a size of a screen, or a size of paper, or a size of a plate or block. So there were these limitations I was coming across, and I was thinking in grad school that I had to kind of like do something with this challenge. And one of the answers is this photo that you're showing, the floor installation, is essentially, these are all relief prints that I cut up and basically turn it into a DIY sticker and install it on the floor. So breaking the boundary, breaking this, rectangular framed print idea, and have more, I guess like room to expand, quite literally. And
also the animal, the fish in your installation, that reminds me of Japanese, Okinawa, or the folk tales. Is that something that you in mind when you're making these works?
I would say so, yes. It's definitely one of those symbolic creatures in Japanese culture. Also, if you know, we have like a giant koi air streamers, and usually in the spring, I forgot when exactly in the spring, but like we put it up on the pole to let it fly, because it's like, these fabric streamers, and those are usually koi fish as well. So I guess like I was picking these as more like a cultural symbol.
Like a symbol of also prosperity a little bit?
Maybe that, and often I was more thinking about more literally, like how fish they seem to be like swimming around pretty freely in the water, but also they were sort of trapped in a tank or a pond or a small lake, and they were sort of like bound in those location and not necessarily free to go anywhere. And I was thinking about those ideas, and not necessarily putting myself into that, but sometimes I feel like that too.
When you say that, is that kind of referring to your immigration experiences being in this country and sort of free at the same time, a little bit, confined to certain things?
Yeah, that's a very interesting way. When you just said that, it does, even though I'm not consciously thinking about that, but like it's pretty, you sort of like spoke the truth right there, where yes, I came to the free country, and then I also have these limitations as my resident status. So for example, since I'm not a citizen, I cannot vote. That has been especially a challenging thing for me right now.
So since we're on this topic, tell us a little bit about how came to the country and being in Midwest and went to Syracuse. How does that influence your printmaking process or your thinking as an artist?
Well, this is a good question too. Like, there's a lot I suppose I can say about. I think one of the big things will be being physically outside of my own country that I was like born and raised gives me a totally different perspective, because when I was growing up in my hometown, like all these things, like I don't pay attention to and not necessarily conscious about it. I once I moved here, it's all these things sort of starting to or how can I say this, like people will ask me like what it's like in Japan, or like ask me about the culture, the lifestyle, politics, any kind of system. And a lot of times I have to think about, because like again, like I wasn't paying attention, being a naive teenager, and I had to educate myself or like do some research about my own country in order to answer some of these like questions that I get. So my undergrad work became about sort of like representing and like sort of like educating through my visual work, educating the audience through visual work.
And have you actually brought your art back to your hometown, showing there to the people who familiar with your upbringing, childhood, or neighborhood?
I haven't had the opportunity to bring my own work back and show in Japan. Not in the actual, I think I have sent some of my prints in exhibition, but I wasn't there. So like there was no way I could get any feedback from the viewers. And it's something that I should consider more about, like, reconnecting to my roots or my country. Because I've been away for so long, I haven't been home for so long. So there's some disconnection, I feel like, for that.
Right, because you were mentioning that being in this country actually brought you more the desire of studying your Japanese culture and tradition, and I'm curious to learn what the native people in Japan's reaction when they see your work. I'm sure it will reflect of your traveling experiences being here. So that's something, it could be a next project for us to explore. Now I want to bring back to your wall piece behind you. So the wall piece looks more abstract. Is it kind of reminiscent of ocean waves?
Yes, that's what we talked about before, how I guess like my inspiration sort of comes from, again, from some of my memory, personal history, being raised in Japan, where most of our country is surrounded by the ocean, and no exception to my hometown. We had it was like a bay city. We had this like nice bay and outer like there's like inner harbor, and then there was outer beach area. So the ocean was very close, I think, to me or everyone like growing up. And once you move to the US, and unless you're in the West Coast or East Coast, you're gonna be very far away from this like big water. And me, for example, was in Midwest in Michigan, and I had this sense of longing. I was really missing the big body of water, mountains, and we have lakes in Michigan, but not huge lakes. And then all these abstraction of lines and patterns, sort of like for me, is representing this water, ripples, waves, reflections, something I'm fascinated about.
Mm-hmm. I also want to ask you one other question that you and I spoke earlier. You were saying that had you still been living in Japan, you might not be able to pursuing art career and teaching, doing what you do now. So my sort of question leading towards ending is that, do you also in our conversation you refer to Japan as your home? So where's your home? I don't mean to put you on the spot. I'm just, it's an interesting sort of theme that we often think about as immigrants.
No, yes, this is a truly interesting question, and this does come up in a conversation between me and my friends or someone like that I just talked to. And considering almost half of my life I've been in the US at this point, which is a little mind-blowing for me now. I have been here for quite a bit of time. I think the idea of home has been dramatically changed, or at least I think it's very different from a lot of the people who's like, for example, like born and raised here in the US. Maybe their home is like in a different state, but it's somewhere you still can maybe drive or take a train or fly. My original home is back in Japan. It's like it's 13-hour flight plus another couple of different connection flights. So it usually door to door. I calculated this before, but it's like a little over 30 hours to get home if I take a flight. And to answer your question right now, I feel like the current apartment that I'm living is a home to me, because that's the place that I go back to. And even though it's temporary, because it's not a permanent house for me. And then I have a separate home back in Japan that whenever I need to go home, and I mean, if I have the money to go home, then there are people like my mom's waiting, and some of my siblings are around the hometown. There's a place that I can go home, but it's like this idea of like two different idea of home, like the permanent home that I grew up in, the actual like a home base that I'm working out of in Syracuse is, and I was thinking like Syracuse, I wasn't gonna like, I was thinking about like, I'm not gonna be here that long, because after graduate program, and I was thinking maybe I'll, find a job somewhere else, or move elsewhere, whatever the opportunity, that I get. But then I ended up staying here. So it's becoming more, it feels a little more like home now in Syracuse.
Sounds great. And I hear some background noise. I'm sure it's the installation that's going on.
Oh, I'm sorry, yes.
No, that's perfect fine. I think it's great that we feel we're kind of in the middle of the action. So thank you very much, and I'm very much looking forward to see the finished installation. I'm planning to visit there. And thank you very much for joining us. Come back next week. I will be talking with another artist next week. So thank you. Bye-bye.